Good evening. I'd like to welcome you tonight to the Norwich City Council meeting. We'd like to thank the Norwich Board of Education, the superintendent, for making this site available to us. If you do not know, the elevator is broken at City Hall, and that's why we've moved here for public access to be available. Tonight we're going to begin with a statement concerning the Uncasleep Heritage Park that has been in the works for a number of years. So at this time, I'd like to invite SLR International Corp., their representatives, to come forward.
Good evening, City Council and public. I just wanted to introduce our consultants. These are from SLR International Corporation, formerly Malone and McBroom, who did the concept plan for the Uncasleep Heritage Park. Now, as this is an ARPA project, we wanted to keep everybody informed of what's going on and how we're spending the money. Right now, the project is about 30% complete in the design process, and they're going to explain, some of the intricacies of the project and how there might be some minor variations from what the original concept plan was as things evolved in the design process. So with us from SLR tonight is Michael Doherty and Lynn Mao. They're two primary people that are working on this project for the city. Take it away. Whichever, you can either do it from up, yeah, that's where you're.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. Is this on? Yeah. Yep, it's on. Thanks, Pat, for that introduction. So my name is Mike Doherty. I'm a principal landscape architect with SLR. I've been working on the Uncasleep project since 2016, somewhere around there, which has been a great job for us. We really have enjoyed working with the city staff and the community. With me today is Lan Ma. She has also been working on the project for the same amount of time. So we've really been invested in the project to date. It's been a great experience, and we're really looking forward to actually getting something built on the project site, which you've already seen some of the progress the city's done, which we'll touch on shortly. But just to bring you up to date, we are in a contract right now for construction documents, so we're working our way from that 2018 master plan, which was, conceptual in nature. We did have survey. There was a lot of information gathered for that plan to get created. But into these 30, 60, 90, 100% design steps, you really dig into it a lot more and really flush out all the issues so that we have a buildable plan. So to date, we've done additional field survey because things have changed out on the site. We've also done further geotechnical explorations, so soil borings to gain a better understanding of what some of the foundation designs, wall designs will need to be. We've also done further environmental soil reports and testing because soil's been moved, different things have been demoed on the site, so there was additional information to be gained there. And what we've been working through recently was conceptual updates from the master plan to the schematic 30% design, and we just recently had a meeting with the design committee and city staff to bring them up to date, and this is a very similar presentation we're giving to you tonight. And as we move forward, we're working into wrapping up schematic design and into the 60% design development phase. So just to take a quick step back, this site has a lot of rich history, a lot of cultural history to it, and we understand the importance of it within the overall city of Norwich. So when we developed the master plan, we had this guiding statement that we always referred to, so we'd like to go back to it from time to time to just make sure we're still on the right track, because this was worked on with the design committee and the community at large. And a couple of things just to highlight. the inherent characteristics of the site, we're always striving to bring those out and not really over-design and put in too many elements that may take away from the attractiveness and the already rich history of the site. So we're constantly kind of reevaluating where we are and just making sure we're still on task with this mission statement. Just to give you a quick update visually from the master plan, if you haven't seen it lately, there's a lot of thought was put into this, the access to the site and the way you move through the site and the different points which you experience the site are all very important to the overall plan and the overall implementation of the vision that was established. And just to give recognition to some of the great work that's already been done based on the master plan, as you know, the city acquired the property where there was a former residential building that was removed and the small parking lot was installed to give access to the site, and then the major kind of partial demolition of the granite mill building, which is now the remnant stone mill with the support structure within it. Really some major changes that have occurred on site. If you haven't been there recently, certainly worth taking a drive or walk by. And so these are some of the reasons, again, we went back and did additional survey and started to reach back into, what's the existing conditions out there on site. So as we worked through, and tonight really what we wanted to do was highlight what's changed from the master plan. And nothing has really evolved that's really a tremendous diversion from the previous plan. But we wanted to just touch on these three main areas so that you understand some of the thought processes that are going through this and how the plan is evolving to really coalesce into what will be the construction documents. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lon, and she'll walk you through these three separate areas within the site.
So I'm going to talk about the major changes to the master plan. In the area A, we originally have an accessible path go through the lawn to the pedestrian bridge, but the new parking lot has changed the grade, so we'll have a new configuration in this area as well as the direct access from the parking lot to the park. In the area B, we have removed all the trail access and the kayak landing, and then we'll have a new location for the cantilevered overlook. In the area C, from this map you can see we have an accessible route go from the parking through the building and back to the storage circle. The new survey has changed the topography, so I'll talk about the new layout in this area. So here is the schematic design. From this point, originally we have a path go through, and then the grading in the parking lot requires a really long run from the parking to the bridge. So we figured, and then we just checked the existing sidewalk. We found the sidewalk is in pretty good condition. And as you can see from the image, the slope is about 5%, and in the new schematic design, we plan to use the existing sidewalk from the connect the parking lot to the park. And then we have the stair access to the pedestrian bridge. We kept as same as it shows in the master plan. This is an existing image to show the fork shape, and the proposed stair will be aligned to the pedestrian bridge. At the junction in this area, we have our path connect to the Yantic Street, and then we also found the area in this lawn has a potential vista view to see the upper fall and the train track. So we proposed a picnic area. This is the image shows the view, and the existing lawn has a pretty flat slope, so it's an ideal location for a picnic area and benches. Originally we have a stair access go over the gorge to the park. We found it's structurally challenging to do the elevated staircase from the old location, so we proposed a new access point for the elevated staircase. This image shows where the approximate location of the access will be, and the upper image shows the existing condition of the topo, which is more promising to put an elevated stair access. Then we moved to the park. The pathway through the park we kept as the same as the master plan. The only tweak is we move the location of the overlook decks. One overlook the Yantic Fall, and the other one look over the Yantic River. So this is the image shows where the view to the fall, and this is the image of the second location of the overlook, see the river, and we will clear some of the shrubs to provide a better view. Move to the parking area. Originally, we have 3 parkings, 2 accessible, 1 regular. In this schematic design, we proposed 2 accessible and 2 regular parkings. This image shows where the new location of the parking and drop-off area will be, and also we will push the parking towards the park 5 feet towards the street to make the grading work. Now we move to the storage circle and stone mill building. In the master plan, we have an accessible route from the parking to the stone mill. Now there's grading change. There's a 7 feet elevation change. We have to put a staircase from the parking lot to the stone mill building. And somehow we still want to make the route accessible to the storage circle and stone mill building. So we propose another loop all the way down to get to the storage circle, and we will have a accessible ramp to connect to the existing concrete slab to make it accessible all the way to the stone mill building. And along this route, we will have the exhibit panels to tell the history of the site. And also, we kept the amphitheater features to the storage circle. And do you want to talk about the grading in the amphitheater?
Sure.
Okay.
So, yeah, at the grading of the amphitheater, if you could see in the image in color here, the seating was kind of condensed and tight to each other. As we worked through the site access and trying to consolidate some of the pedestrian routes, we felt it could work just as well if the amphitheater was more of a traditional style with the rows between the seating, and that you could access kind of freely from the top edge of it and filter your way into the amphitheater itself instead of having a dedicated walk that paralleled the stone mill building. So we basically removed one walk and then rerouted the accessible route out and around almost to the Yantic River side, so you can access the story circle itself. You could then walk across a ramped section onto what is now a concrete pad in front of the stone mill building, and then walk parallel to the building and through the old mill race to access into the actual stone mill remnant shell. So you can see the photo there in the right-hand side that's Lon standing. That would be the entryway into the exhibit room of the stone mill. Now, we do have to contend with the structure of the mill that's now holding up the walls. So this highlighted in somewhat of a red color would be the exhibit room, which would utilize decorative fencing and interpretive panels to direct visitors through that space, but not allow them to actually access the structure itself or touch the stone walls, because they are still somewhat exposed. You can actually pull stone out of them if you so desired. So to keep people kind of away from that edge and away from those wood structures that actually could be climbed if they were given free access, we're trying to keep people within a dedicated area that then allows them to experience the feeling of being in that building shell, but keep them safe and keep the building and the structure safe as well. Finally, the last iteration that was changed here is looking at the restroom building, which the master plan has a small pre-engineered restroom building that was located somewhat towards the mill building. City staff brought up a good point that it was across from the view of the residential buildings and that we could probably try to get it out of their view shed, and so we shifted it over, you can see the arrow pointing here, so that it does not align directly across from the residential buildings. So a slight shift, and it actually brings it more central to the site, so if you're accessing it from the east or the west, you actually have more of a midpoint to go to. So as we work through these next months, really, in terms of the design process, we're looking to delve a little bit deeper into the site itself, so we'll be cutting critical cross sections really to show us the different elevations. If you know the site, if you can see on the screen, it's probably a little difficult from the size. There's a lot of grading to contend with, a lot of topography to deal with. So we're going to cut critical cross sections to really understand the different levels that you're at and where you're looking and how you're experiencing the site. Another key point is we're going to be going through and presenting material options, so different finishes, different colors, the style of the light fixture. There's a lot of very small details that can really make the park shine. And we want it to be, durable and maintenance-free, but we also want it to be beautiful. So we'll be presenting different options in terms of how that can be and how it becomes a total package for the site so that it reads as one single park in the overall scheme of the city of Norwich, but really shows off the great character and the inherent characteristics of the site. Of course, we'll also be working through construction estimates so that we're making sure we're on budget. There's a lot of different components to the project, so we're going to have to be very cognizant of that and make sure that they're working towards that budget and not preparing plans that will go beyond that. And the next couple months we'll also be submitting regulatory submissions, so we have to submit to the Inland Wetlands Commission as well as Planning and Zoning. And we'll be also preparing the designs for the Sachem Street connection. So beyond the park itself, the project grew a little bit to that Sachem Street connection, so we'll be redoing the pathway there and the stairway up to Sachem Street, which will provide a much more safe access that currently is technically closed, but I'm sure people still use it, as we've seen. And just to give you an overall idea of schedule, we're right here in the design development, 60%, as I mentioned earlier. We'll be working through that at least to the end of August. It'll probably go into October a little bit, but our total end date is really to look to get this bid for January of 2023 so that the contractors can have it during the winter, go through it and bid it and submit and then award a contract so that we're ready to go for spring of 2023. So with that, I'd happy to open it up to questions.
Thank you. Could you give a little more detail on the connectivity between Sachem Street and Uncasleep itself?
Sure. So it'll basically follow the same pathway as it does today. So you walk down the sidewalk of Yantic Street, and our improvements will start at the small parking lot that's immediately abutting the trail of that connection. So you're in the gorge going up to the street staircase. So that whole area that is technically right now pretty much just gravel will be an improved hardened surface, most likely either concrete or an asphalt sidewalk depending on budget. And then the stairs themselves up to Sachem Street will be completely redone. So new handrails, all new stairs and treads. It'll take you right up to the same access point onto Sachem Street. It'll really follow the same pathway. There's not a whole lot of space to move within that kind of gorge area. So it's going to follow a pretty similar path.
As I recall, one of the intents is not to disturb the soil below the existing grade as it comes down through the gorge
Yep,
And that's out of respect to
sure.
the
Yeah.
history of the site.
All excavations, we're trying to be as shallow as possible. So we can work with the grade that's there and do a little bit of filling, maybe a little minor bout of cutting. But yeah, we're trying to stay above grade, not really dig into that soil at all.
Thank you. Members of council, questions? No questions. Please, President Pro Tem.
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks.
So with regard to the ravine and the stairwell up to Sachem Street, there was talk at one time that the major hurdle with that part of the project was an ADA compliant stair and ramp kind of system. Have we moved far enough along so that we've accommodated people with mobility issues and still looking at a project that would be feasible and practical with the minimum amount of disruption to the site?
So in terms of the Sachem Street connection, that section will not have a ramp. It won't be ADA compliant in terms of an accessible ramp, because the amount of construction we'd have to do to make a switchback all the way down that hillside would be tremendous. We would have to do a lot of different excavations for support structures that would turn into a pretty nightmarish project, to be honest. But everything will be to code in terms of the stairs, the handrails, the walk itself to the stairs. But we can't get you from Sachem down to Yantic with a ramp structure.
Oh, yeah, that is exactly the concern. So logistically, if there were to be an event at this site, the site on Yannick Street, actually, at the falls is
Yep.
completely accessible.
Yep.
And let's say that whatever event might be happening in conjunction with the site at the corner of Washington and Sachem,
Yep.
then folks, we would be providing, I would imagine, the kind of parking at both sites so that if a site originated at the falls,
Sure.
and then people with mobility issues could get into their vehicles, make their way up Sachem Street to the upper site,
Yep.
and then again, that part would all be accessible. But because I grew up in that neighborhood, I know how steep that ravine is.
Yeah.
I've been there a number of times lately, and I really questioned how we were going to manage a 12/1,
Yeah.
ramp.
Right. Yeah, you're correct. So that's why we provided the handicap spaces right at the site of the park on Yantic Street. There's also one space in the small parking lot up the road. But yes, then you'd have to travel back up to the corner if there was another event there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members' questions at this time? Alderman Singh.
Quick one. So do you think that project has any impact on NPU utilities in that area? Because there is a big sewer line at the end of Sachem Street as well.
The connection part
Yeah.
of the project, we're going to have to coordinate with them, and we have been already because of some of the impacts just at the park itself and the lighting that's proposed. But we're going to try to stay away from that line
Okay.
and not affect it. But yeah, we know it's running.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
basically right next to it.
Yep.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
President Pro Tem.
This might be a question for the Director of Planning and Neighborhood Services, but at one time we were talking about an archaeological survey of the ravine. Where are we on that? Is that still part of our thought process?
When we did the phase one archaeological survey of that whole area, but was the Sachem Street connection?
Excuse me, could you approach the microphone, please? Just for the record, thank you.
Deanna Rhodes, Director of Planning, City of Norwich.
Regan Miner, Executive Director of the Norwich Historical Society.
So, want to talk about who's out there?
Yeah, I'll just comment quickly. I know a couple years ago at this point, Jamie Quinn and Elaine Thomas of the Mohegan Tribe did do a Phase 1, as Mike mentioned, archaeological survey of the site, and I believe they said everything looked fine to them. We can certainly follow up with them to see if they have any further work to do there.
They seem to be comfortable with what the mayor had brought up earlier, which was not doing full excavations there, and, we just got their advice on it, and it seemed like as long as they were involved and they were aware what was going on, they were comfortable with it. I don't want to speak on behalf of the tribe, but that was the impression that we got at our Sachem Committee meetings. Meetings with the August Leap Committee meeting.
Yes, thank you. I mean, that was really the second part of my question is, what interactions have we had with the tribe
So we have Joe here.
so that we're sensitive to their concerns?
Joe Smith, I'm here officially on behalf of the Norwich Historical Society and unofficially on behalf of the Mohegan Tribe. Jamie Quinn, who they mentioned, and Elaine Thomas are the officers of the Tribal Historic Preservation Office, which, because the tribe is a sovereign nation within the state of Connecticut, they're the equivalent of the State Historic Preservation Office. They would be very concerned about whether there were human remains in the ravine, whether it was ecologically a danger zone, but they gave their A-OK. I guess, Reagan, you engaged them, right? Yeah, so I think we're clear there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate the additional information. Other questions, members? I guess we're all set. Thank you very much. Appreciate the update.
Thanks for having us.
Look forward to further discussions.
Yep.